Welcome to the Vision 2222 podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Nicolas Freudiger, co-founder of ID Genève, a pioneering watch brand committed to sustainability and innovation. Nicolas has been at the forefront of integrating eco-friendly practices into luxury watch industry, which we will talk about more in this episode. Nicholas, welcome, and we are very happy to have you join in on this episode with us. Is there anything you'd like to say before we jump into the first question?
No, thank you for the invitation. Very glad to be here and be discussing with you.
Okay, great. So we'll begin about telling us about the company, ID Watches. So
Mhm.
ID Genève has a very inspiring story of its beginning. It started with dreams of yours and some childhood friends. Walk us through that entrepreneurship journey, the story of how you got started in the early days up to the present day, where you just won an award for Best Sustainable Watch in 2024. And you also have some celebrity endorsements. So it's quite a
Mhm.
journey. What are some of the lessons that you learned in your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, let me give you a bit of the background on the company. And as you mentioned, I don't think there is anything more beautiful than a childhood dream. With 14 years old, my co-founder and best friend Cedric starts his apprenticeship at Vacheron Constantin, so a luxury brand in Geneva. He's one of the youngest apprentice there ever. And I discovered watchmaking through his eyes as we know each other since we were 4 years old. So we grew up together. And obviously when he starts at 14, I really fell into the world of watchmaking, this beautiful world of Swiss watchmaking. And with 15, we're cutting grass in the summer and really already discussing a watch brand. Don't ask me why. I think, it was just out there. We wanted to, at some point of our life, to build a watch brand altogether. And from there, we decided to take different paths. His path more technical than mine. I went more into the commercial path, building, I studied hospitality in Lausanne, and then 4 years of corporate work. But we always stick together and we always recall this moment because I think with 14 and 15 years old, what you're trying to achieve is just being significant. And I think that was really what we recall every day is we really try to be significant towards this amazing industry, which is the Swiss made industry. And yeah, when we turned 30, we decided, okay, now it's time to do it. And I quit my job. I was working in Zurich as digital manager of a big American soda company, not to mention any names. And I quit my job and I came back to Geneva, knocked on his door, and we decided, yeah, okay, now it's time to build this stream. Obviously, we've been thinking about it, working already on it. But I think at some point you really gotta take this leap of faith. And I think today we're glad we did, with all the results, in the past 4 years. But I think it's still about what is very strong with us. I think is the team, the founding team, and obviously we have Cedric, which is the COO, technical director of the team, but also found Singal, which is the third co-founder, which is the creative mind behind ID Genève, and the artist. And I think that was really that is our strength, in winning some of the awards, convincing people to join in. And then I can tell you now what ID stands for. And ID stands for new identity. And we're not just another watch brand, but really building what the future of the Swiss watchmaking industry will look like. And for us, it's very simple. We need to take part. of the ecological transition. We need to be playing an active role. And how do we do that? If you look at Swiss-made watches, I'm going to give you one statistic. Today, 95% of watches sold over 1,000 USD are Swiss-made. This is huge, 9 out of 10. It's a hegemony, it's a quality, it's a recognition, and we look at it as a responsibility because when you're selling watches over 1,000 USD, you have the means to change the world, and this is what we're doing. We're talking to the 1%, to the top 1%. And what we decided to do while talking to them is really offering the best eco-innovative choices. And what I always say is that we're harnessing the power and recognition of Swiss-made watches and put it at the service of climate solutions and climate heroes. So what we do is really partner up, co-develop new eco materials, and put it on the wrist, make it tangible, make it desirable, and obviously use this platform for change. And this is what we've been doing for the last 3 years. Now we're 3 years into the market. And luckily, but we'll speak about it, we did our first fundraising round in October 2023. And we were lucky also to welcome Leo DiCaprio as an investor of the company, and not an ambassador. I think that was very important for us. I think, we're building an authentic relationship and a genuine relationship with him. And he wanted to support the mission, and that's what he did with his own investment.
That's a really excellent journey there. And based on your early beginnings, I can see how a dream can start very early on in your childhood or youthful days, and it takes a while for that to come into fruition, right? Because usually people get jobs, they get on with their life, and then you have some idea or some itch to get started up on that idea again. So it's really good that you took the initiative to work with your childhood friends and get the company started. Now, I have a follow-up with regards to branding and climate and sustainability, because your entire space is in luxury watches. And I know for many celebrities or people who can afford that price range of watches, brand or brand recognition is very important. So my question is, how much do you think that these people that can afford it, that 1%, really think that climate and sustainability is important? Is it really on their top agenda, or they're just interested in that Swiss made sign?
It's a very good question, and I've been very close to academics, to study that. I think, it's a psychological question also. And
Right.
when you look at sustainable luxury, right, and this is not my thoughts, this is really academic literature, is saying that, it's two concepts that are contradictory, like you're thinking about luxury, which is about, I want to reward myself for achieving this, and I
Yes.
want to buy,
Yes.
I want this status. And then sustainability, which is, I want to think about the environment, I want to think about Oman, how can I contribute to the environment? So both together create a stress in the theory of human basic needs.
Yes.
But luckily there are some solutions. And one of them, and I really like this one, it's going for the eco-innovation, right? What's innovative there? Because also when you're going just for the climate taxes, like what we're speaking, even in Switzerland, like there was a vote, like people vote, they don't want to hear about taxes. I think this is critical worldwide. We don't want to hear about that. So what we're trying to do is, make ecology more desirable. I think,
Right.
while we're working on that. And and with a watch, it's actually the perfect thing. Is, when we went to Leo DiCaprio, for example, my speech was really that a watch is like a fiction, right? And you can recall his last movie, Don't Look Up, which was about this asteroid coming down to Earth, and this parallel with climate change. And with a watch, you don't have to make a person sit in a room and show him graphs of climate warming and that we're all going to die. With a watch, you can actually stand for this new economy in a positive way, which is not pointing fingers, but which is about leading by example, leading with a
Right.
symbolic object. And so what we found in our community is that it's a community of avant-garde, usually a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people working with renewables, a lot of working in this new blue economy. And especially in Dubai, when we came for the Dubai Watch Week, for example, we had people coming from all the renewable, the solar centers of energy, and we're coming in a way that, we want to be the most eco-innovative watch. That's our promise to our client. And our clients really like it. They want to understand it. And they see, as we see, that watchmaking is a laboratory, for the next gen materials. And as you all recall the first watch on the moon, which is Omega. Now you can all recall the first Swiss-made watch brand to be B Corp certified, and this is us. This is us, so we are here to stay at the forefront of circularity, and that will be the case in the years to come.
Thank you. Nicholas, you mentioned already, you talked a lot about eco-innovation and materials. So I have a follow-up question on sustainability. So these days, everybody's concerned about sustainable materials, sustainable practices in, for example, 3D printing, which is my background. Everybody's talking about circular economy and how this materials that we use in 3D printing, whether it's plastic filament or metal, can be reused, recycled, and this creates this circular economy. So my question, and that what was very fun to read about also sustainable practices that you are using. For example, that solar furnace. That was pretty cool. Very interesting. My question is about materials that you use in watches and watchmaking. What do you think from sustainable perspective? What are the materials that you're using today? Why are you using them? And also, what do you think about the future 10 years from now? What will be the trend? What will be the materials? How they will influence the design of an innovation in the watchmaking industry?
Very good question. I think that's the best question to any impact entrepreneurs. First, how do you make sure, the product that you put out there is better than the status quo? And I think that's the key message. And, we've been measuring our impact, and I think for us, it's really in 5 years' time, how do we become more circular? I think it's in the journey. Let me give you an example, with the straps that we first worked with what I called pleather options, which is a mix with plastic, and alternatives to leather, with which comprehend PU, so polyethylene. And we started with Vegea, a startup in Italy, producing this out of a wine residue, post vinification. And we've moved also to a company, and I just visited them in London. Yesterday I was at their offices. It's called Biophilica. The founder is Mira, and they're doing an alternative to leather, 100% plant derived from green waste collected in the London parks. Because a tree every year will give 300 kilograms of green waste, and obviously some of it will directly return to the earth, but we can collect it and we can process it and we can use it. before it goes back to nature, and we transform it into watch straps. And those watch straps are, after, post life cycle, collected back and put in an industrial compost facility in Switzerland to produce biomethane. So that's one example. Regarding now, what's the biggest impact of the watchmaking industry is mining extraction. So mostly mined gold and diamonds. For us, it's very clear we are not using them. We're again trying to change the underlying narrative of luxury. One of the biggest narrative of luxury is a diamond is a girl's best friend, right? I think, this was the propaganda of the beers for years and years. What we're trying to come up here is with a simple message. We're working with waste, traceable waste. That means stainless steel waste based in Switzerland. We take the highest quality of those wastes, which is the grade 4441 of stainless steel. And with 40 companies, we did a pilot, and we just take back this waste, and we collect it and put it all together in a location in Switzerland, and we remelt it within 200 kilometers. That means we have a carbon footprint 10 times lower than the industry average. And then with this, we went a step further, and for the remelting process, we went to France and used a solar furnace. So this is no solar panels. It's really a solar furnace. So we use convex mirrors to remelt the steel, and did 9 bars of 50 kilos for a collection of 300 watches. And this is the first time in the industry that we've used solar steel, and this, we measured the impact, has the carbon footprint 165 times less than the industry average. So yeah, again, we're on a journey. We've done a lot of things. One last example that I like to mention is packaging. Packaging per se, if we follow the rules, if you buy a watch and you want to resell the watch, you need the packaging. We made the promise, and this is where we disrupt. We're impact native watch brand. We can reinvent the business model. We promise our community that we're building a packaging to perform, but not to last. That means we're here to perform the ceremonial acts of buying a watch, but then we want to make sure all of our packaging is here to go back to nature. So for this, we use 2 options. One, which is the e-commerce option, which is made out of mycelium. And this mycelium will disappear in 45 days in your backyard. So it's really here to protect the watch while we ship it. But after that, you can dispose of it in nature. And then second, it's a collaboration with Notpla in the UK. We've made a packaging made out of 100% compressed seaweed fibers. So it's a byproduct of their production, an invasive species of seaweed that we find in Europe. And we thermocompress it. And that means that at the end, when you receive your packaging, you can dissolve it into water. It will dissolve it within hours. And then you can use it to fertilize your plants at home, and you don't need to keep it. You could keep it, but when put into water, it will dissolve, and then you can use it to fertilize your plants. So it's a very disruptive approach, but our community really like it. I think, this is why they also turn to us, because they want to see something else than just, buying a watch, keeping the packaging in your basement, just taking dust in your basement. Whereas, we focus on just the functionality, the ceremonial aspect of it, and then making sure it goes back to nature with a neutral impact, obviously, on biodiversity.
And this is packaging, right? So it's not necessarily only for watches. It could be used in any other devices or whatever is needed. And packaging is a huge industry with lots of material. So do you think it could be the future of packaging?
Looking ahead, a couple of years from now, I think, that's the new identity of luxury, right? luxury should here play its role, adopt these new eco materials, but it will cascade down to other industries. And I think this is where it's going to be interesting. It's like imagine if Rolex and Louis Vuitton decides to use other materials, the impact it will have on, car builders, like they will see, okay, well, actually now that it's interesting, everyone wants it because of the luxury industry. So yeah, we have a huge responsibility, the luxury industry. We are this totem industry. But when we see worldwide, there was one statistic also when it was the Super Bowl in the US, like for one day in 24 hours, 1,000 private jet flew in, right, in the city, and people were like, imagine you're a person and you're recycling your yogurts, you're recycling your paper at home, and you see that. So this is why I always say the luxury industry is a totem industry, and we need to act. Otherwise, we are going to become the industry of inequalities, and this is bad for us. This will hit us. So we're here to make sure we take the advantage that we have right now, the means to do it, and the means to accelerate the transition. Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nicholas. John?
Watchmaking started, it looks like not too long after clockmaking. I suppose somebody decided they needed to miniaturize the big clocks, and I suppose around 1500 is when that was going on. Can you talk with us a little bit about how watchmaking has evolved over the centuries to current day, and then looking forward to what it will be for us? We've had a kind of a hint of that in smartwatches and that sort of thing, but what does it look like in that historical context?
I'm no historian, but I'll try my best because I'm a watch passionate. I think before all, I'm a watch collector. I'm a what we call a watchista.
What's the oldest watch you have?
I'm not very much into vintage and in collecting vintage, but I can tell you about one of my special watches, which is one my best friend did for me, which is full customized one for my 18th birthday, and now it's already 12 years, no 15 years old, and still working very well, like, super fine, and I think that's one of my favorite watches still to this day. But it's an interesting question. Watches, were made to measure time, and help us also navigate, explore the world. I think this is why we started making them smaller, so people could take them on the boats, right, and help navigate the oceans. Making sure we discover the world, and so it has helped human civilization. And then we started, seeing it as, a daily use of watches that were smaller in the pocket watches, and then hand wrist watches came through the wars. I think this is not a very good news, but they came through the wars because they needed to have, they didn't have time to take it out of the pocket. They needed to have on the wrists, in the trenches. So this is why we saw the wristwatch coming up. And then I think one major boom was the quartz crisis. So in Japan, they discovered that quartz can vibrate and be 5,000 more precise than a mechanical watch. And that was a crisis in 1982 that almost killed the Swiss watchmaking industry. Really, literally. Like you have to imagine this is the worst crisis ever, and everyone is saying, okay, now everyone is turning to quartz watches, that costs, and a Casio then would cost you, about five francs, like it would really be worth nothing. And but there are some people that believe still that mechanical watches would survive just because of emotions, and that's interesting, and especially this also tells you a lot with the smartwatches also arriving into the market, and the Swiss brand, obviously now just the Apple Watch, are making more watches than all of the Swiss-made watches combined. Can you imagine this? And just 8 years, I think smartwatches is, I think, 2012, 2013. And so imagine in 10, 15 years, they already surpassed the Swiss watchmaking. But in value, now when you look at in value, Swiss-made watches are over 50% of, the watches worldwide. So I think what we've done well is retain this value, and also those emotions are conveyed with a watch that can outrun you, because all of our watches that we produce also, one of my watches is has the name of my son engraving in the back, and we'll go to him. I'm only wearing it, but that's his watch. He's 3 years old. So. But with 16, he'll be able to wear this watch, and I think that's also a testament, right, that you're living to the next generation, and that's the beauty of transgenerational watchmaking, which is, thinking about the next generation. And I think there was in Amazonia like a tribute that was always thinking about, how can I live my life thinking about the 7 next generations, so I think there's something beautiful about it, about watchmaking in this regard, and how do we leave a positive legacy, and more activist also legacy, to say, when we started was in 2020, so I want my son to reflect, when he's 20 years old in 2040, that his dad actually, in 2020 took the choice, made the choice to run this watch brand, and be different also than just the traditional watch brand, and with the new design, for example. But I think our message goes further, than just being a watch brand. So now in the next year, what I can predict, for sure, what I can predict for the next year is that social stratification is now going to change. For all the ages, we've seen different social stratification, from the aristocracy, back in France. And so this won't change, and also what I think won't change is the mechanism of luxury. You're buying luxury because it's also status, and it's for you, and it's for, something inside you. So my hopes are, that let me take a simple example. You're going to Amsterdam and you're driving a Hummer truck, right? And you're going to public place, with people walking on that place, and the peer pressure that those people, when they will look at you driving this truck and this Hummer, and that's my hope, is that, I think a lot will also happen with peer pressure, with the public opinion, and that some comportment, some behavior will need to change, and I can tell you one that will change, in my opinion, is diamonds compared to lab diamonds. I think today we have solutions to replace mined diamonds with lab diamonds. So lab grown diamonds, which are 100%, the same, like they're not synthetic diamonds, they're real diamonds, but made in laboratory. And I think here there innovation that will change. And when we see all the scenarios of climate, the transition, we need to fund all the mining extractions for lithium, for cobalt. This will be necessary to fund the transition, and we're still mining diamonds to this day, right? And we'll ask ourselves, I think, in 5 to 10 years, is it necessary really to go out there and mine diamonds? Whereas we should be considering other priorities, and again, all I'm advocating is, for a transition, and to start the transition. I'm not saying we should close mines, right now. We should not care about the people working there. I think there is a big question of climate justice also in that aspect, and we need to tackle it the proper way. But us, as a new upcoming brand, we thought, we really need to come in clear and not use, it was like we would start a new car brand, and we would use fossil fuel. It would not make sense. mine diamonds and gold are the next fossil fuel, are going to be the next fossil fuel. We're extracting them, and this will have to stop at some point because they're finite resources. And this is something that we have to be clear with, and our community knows about it, and we need to make sure we will create new storytellings. As I was saying, De Beers propaganda. I think we need to create more positive underlying narrative of luxury, again, to drive desirability. Desirability in those eco materials, in supporting those climate solutions and climate heroes.
Yeah, John?
No, you go ahead.
So I wanted to jump into that one. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we talked already about eco innovation and materials, and obviously this eco innovation and the new design going forward. It's not just about replacing materials for more sustainable materials. A change in materials opens up a lot of areas for different innovative solutions, for different designs, and for user experience. What do you think? What are the trends and new features and functionalities that you unlock with this transition to different materials, more sustainable materials, but also maybe more sustainable designs and new attractive user features or functionality that is opened up?
I think with a lot of humility, we're scratching the surface right now of the potential of circular economy. I think so. First, when you look at circular economy, you have one principle which is designed for disassembly. So this is quite clear. We do have an eco-design process of the watches, but also circular economy will go beyond, the product itself. It's the business model that you're building. Can we have watches that, actually you never own, but you can lease them, for example? We have an example, which is our own platform. We've coded a platform, a digital platform, which is called RE, we use, reduce, and recycle. The idea is, with this platform, a client can, activate a cashback option, and within 5 days, we make him an offer to purchase back the watch and purchase back the watches, refurbish it, and put it back on our e-commerce also watch. And so we're still very young as a brand, so this didn't come up yet, but we hope that it will come up and that people turn to us to do it. And I think that's business model innovation, not really related to the product. And for material loops, circular economy, it's about not taking anything virgin out of the earth. And obviously we're working a lot on that, on how can we close loops. I think that's one of the biggest challenges ahead. But already using 100% recycled stainless steel, we eliminate any mining extraction. We don't use mining extractions. We just focus on, how do we have the full traceability until the waste. And that's one critical point I think that we'll be looking at in the future, is traceability. I think it's how do you make sure, how are you accountable, for your traceability within the supply chain, right? Within the value chain. And just this example, this is why we're very proud of saying, we don't know what happened to the stainless steel, but we know that we collected in Jura, in the Jura region, in Roconvilliers. This is a city in Switzerland. And we collected, and we know this waste comes from there. So it's Swiss-made waste, right? That we collect it, we sort it, we make sure we remelt it, and we use it. And that's our promise, and that we don't know above that, where it came from originally, but what we're saying to our community is that we know where we collect it, and that's a good start. And I think this is exactly a good study case for luxury, because, we have the time, and, if you look at a watch, it's 80 grams of stainless steel, a watch, So in the end, we're not going to change the world with this, volume wise, symbolically, symbolic, it's very powerful. And then when you have Leo wear the watch, as he did, that's making a statement, and that statement is that, this is what's the most desirable watch out there, and that we should cherish our waste locally, and we should reinvent also the business models, especially, those recycling facilities worldwide are going to be, next incubators for startups, because we find gold there, and this 100% recycled stainless steel, I always call it the new gold of Switzerland, which is, because it's lying there, it's in our recycling facilities, it's lying there. And we should, mine this instead of mining real gold somewhere in Australia, Canada, or South Africa. We should really focus on finding it locally.
Nicolas, just a follow-up question. So before getting these recyclable steels, what did the mining companies do with the waste in the first place before, you can come collect it?
Very, very, very good question. And the mining companies, so if you take a spoon from IKEA, it's already about 60 to 80% recycled, because the value of transporting it worldwide is not that great. Stainless steel needs to be, and it can be also recycled, and it's an infinite of, it's recyclable also, stainless steel. What we did is push it to the limits. Whereas, we decided we don't need any extra virgin material, right? Those 20 to 40%.
Yes.
And we really decided to make a case of it. It is possible, whereas people said it's not possible. Obviously, we're fighting interests of, a big industry, the metallurgic industry, which is another industry than watchmaking. But, you have to imagine, watchmaking for this metal industry is not that important, right? It's less than 0.1% in volume, like volume-wise. It's because, again, watch is like 80 grams, and
so you're not really on their radar of, hey, this is, something we should look up for. Yeah.
Exactly. But I hope, and that's what I was saying at the beginning. When we first did this, I always remember I got an email from a Swedish company that was doing sinks. They were doing sinks, and they were like, "Hey, can you tell more about what you did?" And again, the power of the luxury industry, of like being seen. I think when we launch a watch, it usually also ends up in the Financial Times, in the New York Times. We get a lot of coverage, and I think that's, again, this responsibility, this accountability. And whenever we are contacted, we're happy to share LCA data. We're happy to share our methodology. And we're happy to share really this, because I think, especially if you're coming from another industry, that's the identity. What I said about luxury being leading by example. Again, leading by having the best practices out there for sustainable production. And sustainable business models.
Thank you for sharing, Nicolas. And this is why, like, the metal 3D printing is also so attractive, because all the material, all the metal can be atomized and used again and again and again. So this is the foundation for circular economy. But when we get to that at the industrial scale, then we'll see a big change and a big difference. But I also have a follow-up question. When I think about watches, right? So maybe I'm oversimplifying, but I see two things. One is pure functionality. I want to know what time is it. And for that, we have multiple means, right? So we're wearing smartwatches or smartphones with us carrying, so it's always easy to look and see what time is it. The other user experience is wearing a luxury watch as a symbol, as a status symbol, or maybe as almost like a jewelry item, something that you cherish, you pass generation to generation. So from these two trends, how do you see them evolving into the future? Do you even see us or people wearing watches 50 years from now, or do we have some embedded mechanism that feeds data into our brain directly, and you always know what is the second and time of day?
It's a good question. When I have to look at the hour right now, like I will take up my phone from my pocket and just look at the hour. Really, it's
Right.
literally, and I'm the biggest watch fan you'll ever see. So no, definitely, watches is about status, but more than status, it's also emotions, right? And also it's about saying I look at this brand and it's what we call aspirational marketing. I want to be like this brand. I want to be like this lifestyle, and I want to be as successful as Rolex, other brands, or the Omega. And so again, I'm going to be brutally honest. I love that because that's what I said before. I think there's different things that are not going to change. And luxury, the mechanism of luxury is not going to change. But what we will do is, as a startup, because we're smart, we're agile, we're gonna use that for the better good, right? So meaning what I say is that if I own an ID watch, uh, I will have understood before the others where the world is going, where the economy is going. So same mechanism, different end results, right? Because when you're purchasing an ID watch, you're supporting those climate solutions, those climate heroes, right? And so we're sort of hacking the system, right? And I really like to do that because I don't think we'll change. And at some point, I want it, to be recognized also. When you're wearing an ID watch, you'll be recognized for this and be above the others, and that's just the mechanism of luxury, which will not change. But I think if we put it to good use, this is why we're a B Corp. B Corp is about, thinking the business for good, right? And we need to be also that's what I tell my team every day. Now we're about 10 people also working at ID. And I tell them, we need to be successful commercially. That's the best KPI we should have for impact. That's the best KPI for impact. Because if we're successful, it makes other people think about this business model and think about this as an opportunity and not just, philanthropy. We want to make the world a better place, but hey, we're here again, to sell watches, to make this a desirable option and a credible option worldwide, compared to traditional watchmaking.
Thank you.
We're going to switch our questioning a little bit now and ask you to fantasize. So imagine that you could travel through time. And if you could, where in time would you go, or when? What attracts you to that specific time? And is it something, do you want to go there or go to that time period because you want to change something, observe something, or experience something firsthand? And you can go backward or forward in time.
Very good question. I think first time I get asked this question, I think probably, as I know I'm a very curious person, I would go forward, definitely, because perhaps backwards would be really just to relieve the sensation of a crisis, for this, because the Swiss watchmaking industry is so traditional, and obviously fluctuates, every 4 years with a cycle of growth and degrowth, but we've never seen like such a big crisis like the quartz crisis that I spoke, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that and how, it really showed also that the industry is also, capable of reinventing itself, and really striving. And I think there were also some avant-gardist people that at the time were saying, hey, we're going to keep building mechanical watches because we really believe there's a future for that. And that was bold. That was super bold at the time. And so where I want to go is, I think I would go forward in time and about, 20 or 30 years in time and really look at, I think what would be the impact of ID Genève, again, because when we first dreamed this company, when we were 15 years old, I think, again, that was the most important. thing we wanted to do is be significant. Being significant is, being on the timeline of history and making sure we can leave a positive legacy, on this timeline. And I would love us to see there, and if not, understand why not. So that tells you about my mindset and drive.
Uh-huh.
So it would be to understand why it didn't work out. But again, I'm certain we'll make that change and that impact 20, 30 years from now. And that's what we're doing. We're Swiss made kids. We're kids from the industry, and we want to add up to the industry. And I think that's also how I want it to be perceived in 20, 30 years time. The first, usually sometimes when I speak with my investors, I tell them, I ask them, when I tell you about Swiss made watches, what comes top of your mind? And usually it's about, it's quality, it's elite wealth, Swiss mountain chocolate, all this, this unconscious, words out there, and the work of our diplomacy and industry. And I tell them, well, in 5 to 10 years time, I'm going to ask you that question again. And what I want you to answer and add up is circular economy, ecological transition, carbon footprint. That some words where we see that the industry would have taken the initiative to really tackle them seriously, and really be a part of this, and being an active part of the solution. And if we do that as a whole industry, then we would have succeeded in keeping also this greatness of the Swiss watchmaking industry.
Interesting. Can you look beyond 20 years? What do you imagine you might be looking for that far in advance?
Well, I hope we'll still be there. Knowing everything beyond 20 years, I think it's hard to picture, so sometimes when I look at, our financial projections, what I clearly said to our investors, like, I know what I'm going to do in the next 12 months, like, if I'm being honest with you, I know only in the next 12 months what we will do. Further than that, it's just, a projection, right? And no, obviously, I think you mean really still within the watchmaking industry, or like broader? What was the question, broader than this?
Well, knowing how focused you are on watchmaking, I don't think I would ask you to look outside of watchmaking. I mean, you are looking beyond watchmaking because you've taken an ultra traditional industry and are doing your best to honor the traditions, take advantage of the leverage that a luxury brand can apply to what goes on in the world. And you're using that leverage to try to influence the world for the better. That is a remarkable approach. A lot of luxury brands pay lip service to that sort of thing. I think Rolex gets involved in exploration and maybe partners with National Geographic and supports people who do exploration, and that's nice. It shows that they're willing to put their resources into a cause, but you, by the very nature of your product, are trying to do that. It's like, since watchmaking is a tiny, tiny part of the overall global economy, you're looking for specific leverage points where you can make a big difference for people beyond the actual brand. And that's quite visionary. So maybe another question would be, if you can do this with watchmaking, what are some other iconic industries that could take that approach also and try to do a sort of cultural jujitsu on the world?
No, I think go
Sorry,
ahead, Amanda.
I wanted just to add to John's question, if that's okay, because it's a good question, and I'm wondering now with that change, because I see like a lot of younger people. We're talking about the diamonds, right? You mentioned the lab-grown diamonds. They are more going towards that end, and then you have more traditional people that are probably 40 or 50 years older, that you may have a harder time changing their minds to adopt sustainable practices. So I just wanted to add that to John's
Yeah.
question as well.
Mhm. No, I would go back in time also to see the founder of Rolex, the founder of, and it was another time than today. That's just the reality, right? And so I invented that term. I always say we're impact native. We're not digital native, we're impact native, and we're impact focused. We're born from impact, and that's the difference, between, what we could do and what we should do. Everything at ID Genève is focused on impact, right? Even our events, location, we choose the partners, we choose the catering partners that, work with food waste, that work with, and going to your point, of what we should achieve in the next years. And I think it's about our conviction, and a lot of things I do, even to this day, sometimes people think I'm crazy because sometimes it goes beyond just selling watches, where, people say, you should be focusing on selling watches and surviving. And I'm like, yeah, but I follow my convictions, my convictions are telling me I need to be also federating, influencing the industry, voicing, being more an advocate, for climate change. And I think that's very important because this is not your typical financial KPI, and I think here we should reinvent it because, we've seen it, obviously the GDP of countries have contributed, but right now we're questioning that as the new generation is coming up, is it really happiness? Is it really, are we really happy with this GDP? And I think we should question also the growth KPIs that we're putting in. And then lastly, about our vision. Our vision is to put the luxury industry at the center of the ecological transition. So we're not even mentioning the watchmaking industry. And to your point, yes, at some point I will go beyond watchmaking, especially in the luxury industry, because I think it's the whole lifestyle. It's not only watches, it's really the whole lifestyle, and that we need to change. But sometimes it's good to be obsessed. So I'm really right now obsessed with watchmaking, as you can see. And it's good to be obsessed also to have a first success somewhere, and really building up on different phases of the project. And I think right now the importance, and for us, my only call to action, if there's also impact entrepreneurs listening, is that every industry, should have newcomers, impact native brands, that challenges the status quo, right? And that redefine what it means, because I think, we forget that, those brands were made 200 years ago, but that's nothing, like that's nothingness in comparison to the whole, world, like, we're millions of years ago, and that's nothing, and we should question it, we should question the status quo, we should disrupt it. And that's usually what newcomers are all about, right? And we do this in the watchmaking world right now, and I hope there are already others in other industries, right? Challenging the status quo, and you're creating trust also, creating a positioning, a new branding, a new positioning in the industry, and appealing to younger customers, to the new generation also.
So the thing that I'm supposed to do at the tail end of the interview is to sort of summarize and then ask for final points. I think that we've actually done a good job as we've gone along of capturing and recapturing what the conversation is about. So I think it would be redundant to do that. So instead, I think I would just ask, how did you manage to snag Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, let me answer you this question. Obviously, we're very proud to welcome him as an investor. It's a very interesting story. I think for me, it's the power of visualization and vocalization, right? And let me tell you why. I think every impact entrepreneur should be more ambitious than any other entrepreneurs or any other companies, So if, people like you have companies like, LVMH, Richemont, like wanting to grow double digits per year, we should grow even better. Like we should have higher growth also. So, and that came, I think we had an early success in Switzerland back in 2021 after a crowdfunding campaign. We launched a company, and I was asked in an interview by the New York Times in November 2021 what was my wild stream, and somehow very straightforward. And I answered, we want to work with somebody like Leo DiCaprio within 3 years' time. And it was so serious that she laughed about it, and I was like very serious, and she was like, okay, I love it. I'm going to put it in the article. It's very ambitious. I like it. And what she didn't put in the article is why the 3 years time again, and why somebody like Leo DiCaprio. So it was, I think Leo DiCaprio was a great example, of what is standing for advocacy, for climate change, whatever he does, he's been an advocate, but people forget about that. But like he started with 2005, 2006 with, documentaries, before the flood, etc. And so I just mentioned him because I thought he was a great example, but I was like, yeah, somebody like him. And then within 3 years' time, it was because of the UN climate reporting, the GIEC reports were saying back in 2021, the biggest leverage you will have on industries is in the next 3 to 5 years' time. Like the most important change, before yesterday is now. That's a famous quote, but when you think of planting a tree, the best option is now, and I think we should really consider that, I think we're under time pressure, and this is why I put the 3 years. The quick anecdote is that we made it with 1 year ahead of schedule, which is good. Which is good as a startup. We did it in 2 years' time, so that was great. And we're immensely proud of that milestone. I think we don't celebrate enough. And recently, I just got out of a week with 2 awards this week, and I think we're very humbled by that. But it only makes us, want to work harder and on the next milestones, and don't dwell on it. I think we're not dwelling on this success, but really, again, we're feeling this responsibility now to go further and reach out to even more people. And this is why, I cannot wait also to come to the Middle East in February, end of February, with Nadine, and really be advocates of this new identity of luxury.
Yeah, and for sure, the Middle East is filled with luxury items and people that want to buy them. So it's a good market to promote. I just had a thought when you were talking about Leo, because over here you get to see or hear about a lot of news from Far East, India, and so on. And there was a wedding, I'm not sure, from Ambani wedding, and his son is famous for wearing luxury designer watches that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably into millions of dollars. So for looking at people like that, do you think that you would want to align yourself with the elite rich and try to get them to understand that circular economy, because these people are spending close to $1 million on a watch, right? And would they be okay with spending a couple $1,000s instead?
It's a nice question. It's a nice question. What I can tell you is that we're opening India also with Ethos, the group Ethos there, and I don't think there's any geographical barriers for us. A lot of people were also telling us, why are you going to Dubai? There they want to buy golden watches, and it's all about the bling,
they want
bling.
The fancy ones. Yeah.
We'll find our community everywhere we go. And what I can tell you is that we have, watch collectors, paying a lot of attention to us, and especially because also the value of the desirability of the brand is critical, I think, at this point. And I think that's the real deal, which is, how do we make this brand desirable to everyone, and so I'm not targeting the ultra rich, especially if you look at our price segment. We started like 5,000. I think that was the choice, also by choice. We want to talk to a bigger audience, right? And we realize this top 1%, this top 0.001%,
0.1%, yeah.
Obviously they will turn to also or watches at some point, but I think that this is very hard to talk to them about sustainability when they're using a private jet every day. But still, I think our watch brand is not in the end of a watch that wants to be judging people. I think one question that I had is like, why did you choose Leo instead of having Greta Thunberg? Like wear the watch. Well, I answer, well, Greta will not wear a luxury brand, so it's really the in between, right? I have so much respect for Greta. If he listens to this, I love her work, but I think our work at ID Genève is making millions of people better every day. Rather than just having 10 person, perfect. And we know for sure that, a hardcore environmentalist is not going to purchase any luxury watches, But what we also know is during COVID time, the luxury industry growth rates were double digit, in the higher double digits, so it's an industry that is here to stay. And we better have newcomers and new identities of luxury, that to be less toxic and, and more engaged, more advocates of the situation, right? Mm-hmm. Because otherwise we're not going to move the needle, and we need to do it. We need to act.
I think that is an amazingly good capstone comment. I don't know that we could ask you to really do any better than that, what you just said. I think
Thank you, John.
That sort of captures the essence of the whole conversation. How would you want people to get in touch with you?
I think because I'm now having a hard time really going to my personal emails and messages, I would rather have just reach out on our socials, or if it's especially for the Oman region, it would be Nadine, the contact, or otherwise, just info@idwatch.ch, feel free to reach out to us.
Can you share your social handles?
It's like the
ones, for the company.
Yeah. We will do I think okay. We will share that.
But yes, I will share with you and then all the things that you did, okay, for the social media.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you for listening to this episode of Vision 2222. And if you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Please also comment, and we'll do our best to respond.